Today, we're jumping back to the mid-1960s.
That's right. We're looking at the birth of a real icon, the Ford Mustang.
Exactly. We've dug into its origins, why Ford created it, how they launched it, and the immediate splash it made.
It really shook things up.
It did.
Yeah.
So our mission here is to figure out what sparked this whole thing and why it hit so hard so fast.
Sounds good. Where should we start? The reasons behind it.
Yeah, let's kick off there. What were the big drivers for Ford deciding, okay, we need to build this car?
Well, it's interesting. Ford was pretty clever about it. They wanted a sporty coupe, a convertible too.
Something exciting.
Right, but they didn't start from scratch. They actually based it heavily on existing models.
Using parts they already had.
Exactly. Lots of components, the basic structure, pulled from their other lines. It was like giving something familiar a really stylish new look.
And that look, the long hood, short deck thing, that was huge, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely central to the appeal. It just screamed performance, even standing still. A real departure.
Was that purely looks, or did engineering play a part in those proportions?
Good question. I mean, looks were definitely paramount. They wanted something highly styled. But those proportions also kind of helped make room for different engine options. Still, the visual impact was the main goal.
And you had some key people driving this, right?
Yeah, definitely. Lee Iacocca, he was the Ford Division general manager, then he really championed it.
He's famous for it.
He is. And Donald Frey was the head engineer for the project, the T5 project they initially called it. They pulled it off in, 18 months, record time?
18 months? That's incredibly fast for developing a whole new car.
It really is. Shows how focused they were.
And it's fascinating that this slick new car was built on essentially the Ford Falcon platform.
Yeah, their compact car, known for being reliable, maybe a bit basic.
So, kind of practical bones under that sporty skin.
Yeah.
What was the advantage there, using the Falcon?
Cost, mainly, and speed of development.
Yeah.
By using the Falcon's platform and its unibody structure, they could, leverage existing tooling, control manufacturing costs.
Which helped hit that target price point, I imagine.
Absolutely crucial for that. We'll get to the price. But yeah, it also meant they could use familiar suspension, drivetrain components, keep things simple, relatively speaking.
Smart. But they didn't just build it and hope, did they? They kind of tested the waters first.
They did. Very smart move. They had the 1963 Mustang 3 concept car.
Ah, right.
A four-seater. It let them show off the design direction, get a feel for public reaction before committing fully, gauge that interest.
Get some early feedback. Makes sense.
And then there's the name, Mustang. Seems obvious now, but getting the name right is huge.
Yeah, it really defines the car's image.
Yeah.
How did they land on Mustang? I heard there might be a couple of stories.
There are sort of competing origins. The, let's say, official Ford line often credits John Najjar, an executive stylist. He was apparently a big fan of the World War II P-51 Mustang fighter plane.
Makes sense, right? Speed, American icon.
Definitely fits the image. He even worked on an early prototype called the Mustang I.
Right, back in '61, so that connection's pretty clear.
But there's another angle.
There is. Robert Eggert, who was the market research manager, he apparently suggested Mustang after reading a book, The Mustangs, about wild horses.
Ah, the horse connection. Freedom, untamed spirit.
Exactly. And apparently when they did focus groups, Mustang just blew the other names away. People loved it.
So maybe a bit of both. Passion project name combined with market research validation.
Could be. It's fascinating how branding works sometimes, isn't it? Different motivations leading to the same result.
It really is. But that name, as evocative as it was, hit a snag in Germany.
It did. A classic international branding issue. Turns out Mustang was already trademarked there.
By who?
By Krupp for trucks and Chrysler for mopeds. So Ford had a choice. Pay up or rename it for that market.
And they chose. They chose to rename it. It was sold as the Ford T5 in Germany until, December 1978.
T5. Doesn't quite have the same ring to it, does it?
Not really. Shows the complexities, though.
Okay, back to that price point. You mentioned it was key. How low did they get it?
The advertised list price was US $2,368. That was a huge part of the magic.
Really accessible for a sporty car.
Incredibly accessible. And like we said, they managed it by being really smart with parts.
Sharing with the Falcon and Fairlane.
Yep. Interior bits, chassis, suspension, engines, transmissions, Lots of proven existing Ford components went into it, kept the costs way down.
Saved on development and manufacturing.
Exactly. And it made things easier for dealers, too, for parts and service. Win-win.
A really sharp strategy.
Yeah.
Not reinventing the wheel, just putting it on a much cooler car.
You could say that. And it's funny, looking back, their initial sales forecasts were, well, way off.
How's they're off?
They were projecting less than 100,000 units a year.
Seriously. Less than 100,000. Knowing what happened.
Incredible, isn't it? It just shows sometimes you cast lightning in a bottle. It tapped into something bigger than they maybe even realized at first.
Okay, so let's talk about that launch.
Yeah.
They clearly underestimated demand. How did they actually introduce it? It was a bit unusual, right?
Very unconventional timing. Production actually started in Dearborn, Michigan, way back on March 9th, 1964.
March? But it was for the 65 model year.
Exactly. 5 months before the usual start of the model year. That's why you hear people talk about the 1964.5 Mustangs, those early production ones.
Oh.
And get this, the very first one sold to a customer wasn't even in the U.S.
Really? Where?
St. John's, Newfoundland, Canada, April 14th, 1964, a few days before the official big reveal.
Wow. Someone in Newfoundland got the world's first customer Mustang. That's a great piece of trivia.
Isn't it? Talk about being first.
So when was the official debut?
April 17th, 1964. And they went big. The New York World's Fair.
Prime location. Maximum eyeballs.
Definitely made a statement. And initially they launched with 2 body styles.
The hardtop and breadth.
The convertible. The classic choices for that sporty, personal car feel.
But they added another style pretty quickly, didn't they? The fastback.
They did. That came along in September 64, the 2+2 fastback.
That really emphasized the sporty look with that sloping roofline.
Totally. Gave buyers another distinct option. Really leaned into the performance aesthetic.
And Ford was really savvy about getting it seen, weren't they? Beyond just traditional ads.
Oh, yeah. Product placement gold. James Bond.
Can't beat Bond for cool factor. Which films?
Goldfinger had a Wimbledon white convertible. And then Thunderball featured a tropical turquoise coupe. Instant global cachet.
Driving a Bond car.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful marketing.
Incredibly powerful. And that was on top of massive positive press coverage.
How massive?
The day it launched, something like 2,600 newspapers ran favorable stories. Just blanket coverage, building incredible buzz right out of the gate.
Wow. So styling, price, Bond, media buzz. They had a lot going for them. What about inside? Did the interior match the sporty exterior?
It did, but it was also practical. Standard setup was front bucket seats, definitely sporty, but still had a rear bench seat.
So you could actually take friends.
Right. Even the fastback, the 2+2, was usable. It balanced that sleek look with a degree of practicality, not just a 2-seater.
That was like a really well thought out package. No wonder the sales went crazy.
Absolutely bonkers. Remember that forecast of under 100,000 a year?
Yeah.
They sold over 100,000 in the first 3 months.
Very much.
By the end of that extended 1965 model year, they'd sold 318,000, a record. And within the first 18 months,
Oh, man.
over 1 million Mustangs built.
1 million cars in a year and a half.
Yeah.
That's just staggering.
It was a phenomenon, the biggest launch success since the Model A back in 1927.
So comparing it to the Model A, that really puts it in perspective. What was the immediate impact of that massive success?
Well, first, like you said, huge sales for Ford. But bigger picture, it literally created a new category of car, the pony car.
Defined the segment.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Sporty, affordable, stylish, personal coupes and convertibles. And once Ford showed how huge the demand was, everybody else wanted in.
So the competitors started popping up pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah. The other American manufacturers had to respond.
Yeah.
Chevrolet brought out the Camaro. Pontiac launched the Firebird, both in 67.
The classic rivals.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Then you had the AMC Javelin in 68, the Dodge Challenger in 70. Even the Plymouth Barracuda, which actually launched just before the Mustang, really rode the wave the Mustang created.
So it wasn't just competition, it kind of lifted the whole market for that type of car.
Absolutely, and the influence went beyond the U.S.
How so?
That long hood, short deck design language became really influential globally. You saw echoes of it in cars marketed internationally, like the Toyota Celica.
Uh-huh.
And even Ford's own European design Capri, which they sold here through Lincoln Mercury dealers, definitely fit that mold. The Mustang set a style trend.
And Ford even created an in-house competitor.
Mm-hmm.
Well, relative.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
They launched the Mercury Cougar in 67.
Based on the Mustang.
Shared the platform, but positioned as a bit more upscale, more refined, different styling. showed they knew they'd hit a nerve and wanted to capture different variations within that market.
Smart diversification. And the Mustang itself? It's still going strong.
It's incredible, isn't it? Continuous production since 1964. That makes it the longest-running Ford car nameplate ever.
Still being built today. Currently in its 7th generation.
7th gen, yeah. And still one of Ford's best-selling cars globally. 5th bestseller overall for Ford nameplates, I believe. That longevity is just remarkable in the car world.
Any big milestones along the way that stand out?
A huge one recently, relatively speaking. August 2018, they built the 10 millionth Mustang.
10 million, wow.
And get this for a nice touch. The 10 millionth car was a 2019 model, a Wimbledon white convertible with a V8.
Just like the original. Well, one of the iconic original configurations.
Exactly. Echoing the specs of the very first car produced back in '64. A fantastic nod to its heritage, brings it full circle.
That's really cool. And the original design wasn't just popular, it was critically acclaimed too, right? Awards.
It was. The 1965 Mustang actually won the Tiffany Gold Medal for excellence in American design.
Tiffany, like the jewelry company.
That's the one. It was the first time ever an automobile had received that award. High praise for the design itself.
So commercial and critical success. Did it race back then too?
It did. Added to the sporty image, it paced at the Indy 500 in 1964, huge visibility.
Yeah, the pace car is always a big deal.
And it actually competed and won its class in the 1964 Tour de France Automobile Rally, a grueling international event. So it proved it had some performance substance right from the start.
Style, performance, recognition, it had it all.
Pretty much the whole package.
So, thinking back on everything we've covered, the Mustang's incredible launch and staying power really came down to, what? A mix of things.
Definitely a potent mix. That killer styling, for sure. The accessible price point, which was down to that clever use of existing parts.
Smart engineering and costing.
Right. Then the marketing was brilliant. The World's Fair launch, the Bond movies, the press coverage.
Creating that buzz.
And maybe most importantly, it just perfectly tapped into what people wanted, or maybe didn't even know they wanted. That desire for something personal, sporty, exciting, but still attainable.
It wasn't just filling a need, it almost created the desire itself.
I think that's a great way to put it. It offered something new and thrilling that just resonated, especially with the younger generation.
Which leads to our final thought, maybe for our listeners to chew on. When you look at the Mustang's story, this meteoric rise, this decades-long legacy, what deep-seated human desires do you think it really connected with?
That's a big question. Freedom, individuality, that feeling of youth, or maybe rebellion, performance, status. It's probably a blend.
Yeah, maybe different things for different people. And thinking beyond cars, what can we learn from the Mustang's success about innovation or really understanding an audience or just creating something that becomes a cultural touchstone?
That hitting the right combination of factors, design, price, marketing, timing, and tapping into that underlying desire can create something far bigger than just the product itself. It becomes part of the culture.
Makes you wonder, what products or ideas today might be having that kind of quiet, transformative impact, waiting to become the next icon? Something to think about.